Hey everybody, how's everybody doing? Hope all's good. I was away for a week and I'm back and working on this Crosley 124 again. And if you remember in the last video, we determined that the oscillator section of the tuning cap is bad. And we put in a replacement tuning cap just in the oscillator section. Matter of fact, it's right here. It's just an extra one. And we were able to get the radio to play. So the next step is to figure out why the tuning cap is bad. Now, if you remember, I have two tuning caps. I did have a spare one. Both had the same problem. Interesting, right? What's the odds of that happening? But I thought about it while I was away. Could I really describe what the problem was? No. So the only way to describe what the problem was is to really dig into that thing and figure it out. So in what is normal, customary for me these days, here's what we have. There's our tuning cap. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Getting this thing apart requires like a mechanical engineering degree, but it's really not that hard. But we did get it apart, and we're going to prove what's wrong with it. I already know because I've tested it, but I'm going to demonstrate for you how you figure that out. So the frame is really simple. It's an aluminum frame. It's got these plates here, which actually are ground, and they actually act as ground points for some things. I'll show you that in a moment. And the frame is clean, there's no rust, it's all aluminum, it's all good. Here you have your stators. These are the stationary parts that mount in the bottom here. And these are the parts that I have a problem with. Specifically this one. This is my oscillator. These two, this is the RF, and this is the IF, and this is the oscillator. Now what I've since learned, since I've taken this apart, is that this one also developed the same problem. When I first started working on it, it was just this one. Now it's these two. So what's common? Well, to understand what's common is to understand what this thing looks like when it's assembled. So basically, the stators go in here. There's two screws, 4-inch screws, that kind of go through the case. And that's what holds the stators in place on both ends. There's one here, and there's one here. On the top, you have this plate, and this is where the trimmers are, okay? And the trimmers have these little tabs right here, okay? And when this is mounted in here like that, it actually attaches to this. So when you have this in the plate like so, these two things connect to each other, right here. So that's where you get your connection, okay? And then the rest of it is simple. The rotor is the rotor, right? So that's actually independent. So the question you have to ask is, how do we know what's wrong with this thing? So what's common between the two tuning caps that I have a problem with? One is I soaked them both in an ultrasonic cleaner. That we know, right? One went into evaporust, one didn't. So I can't blame the evaporust for that, right? Excuse me, I need a sip of coffee. So what we did is we created ourselves a little test. Okay? So I'm going to show you how we do the test first. So in order to test this, these are the screws. These are metallic screws. And the way that this works is they go through these black insulators. And this is a number 8 32 screw. And they actually screw in. Okay, so to spare you some time, I'm gonna put all this together off camera and then come back and show you how we're going to test it. Okay? I'll be right back. Okay, so we have these three sections of the stator connected together with the screw that goes through them, and you can get a close look. Screw goes through these things, and it's supposed to be isolated, right? This is just a plastic or whatever they made it out of in 1931 is an insulator. So theoretically, there's 3 independent sections. Okay, now we can test that, right? We could take out our meter and set it to the connectivity mode. And let's test it and make sure. So there's a connection. 1, 2, nothing. 1, 3, nothing. Right there, nothing. Screw is connected. These things are independent. We're also going to go here on these connections as well. Nothing. So electrically, these are independent. So what we're going to do now is we're going to simulate this thing being reassembled. Now, if you remember what I said earlier, in the radio itself, in this frame right here, these trimmer caps actually attach just like this. They get soldered together through these tabs right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to use gator wire. Now, some of you are saying, well, that's just going to add more capacitance. Yeah, it is. But it's going to help us validate our test. So we're going to add one piece of gator wire here. I'm going to try to be as neat as possible so you could see it. The other one goes to this side of the trimmer cap like that. Okay? Then we've got one here, which again goes to the second section. And then we have one more, which comes here and goes to the third section. Okay? So theoretically, at this point, we've got our connections to the trimmer cap. These connections right here are what go under the radio, to the tubes. Now there's only one thing missing here, and that's a ground. Now, I want you to take a look at this trimmer cap. If you've never seen one of these before, I'm going to kind of explain to you how it works. There's all different kinds. As you know, every radio has a different kind of trimmer cap generally. This one right here works like so. So you have this plate, which is this. It's a non-conductive plate. Okay? On the non-conductive plate, there is a piece of metal like this. I'm hoping you could see this. Let me turn this light down. Maybe that's better. There's a piece of metal, and this is the little tab here, which I have connected right here with this wire. And there's a hole, okay? Then there's this cover plate right here. And what happens is you put the piece of mica in here like this, and then the cover plate goes on top of it, and there's a screw. So essentially, you're creating a capacitor. So you've got a bottom plate, a piece of mica, and a top plate. And the top plate is connected to the ground, or the frame of the tuning cap. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a ground as well. So the first section that we're going to test is right here. This is our oscillator section. So now we have a nice ground. And just for kicks, we're going to make sure we go through the frame. Right? That would simulate something close to realistic. Okay? We're going to take our capacitor checker, which is right here, so you can see it. Let me turn this light off. Maybe a little glare there. Perhaps you can see that. So we're going to take our capacitor checker, and we're going to put one side to this ground, which is the frame, and we're going to put the other side to the oscillator section of the tuning cap. So theoretically, I should be reading the piece of mica. Now you got to remember, this is going to simulate a wide open tuning cap. And let's see if we can zoom in on that. This is the bad section. Look what I'm getting. 135 picos. So why is it working? What's missing from the equation? Well, one thing that's missing is the screws that I have going through these stator sections aren't grounded. Right? Normally they're grounded to this frame. So let's take another piece of gator wire and let's see what happens when we ground it. So again, we're going to come to this ground section that we've got. And I want you to watch this capacitor meter checker. Let's make sure you can see that. Okay. Still holding at about 142. You gotta remember, I'm playing with wire here, so it's going to vary. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and connect it to one of the screws. Okay? Right here. Just the screw that goes through. And we're going to see what happens to the meter. So we're going to go to the first one. First screw, no problem. Let's go to the second screw. That's working too. Okay, good. That's a good thing. So that means that this section is now working. It could be because I've been playing around with the wires. It could be because I've taken that screw in and out several times. It could be a number of things. But at the moment, we're going to say that this section is working. Okay? We're then going to take our ground, we're going to take our lead and we're going to move it to the center section. Like so, right in the center. Okay? And we're going to move this over here to the center section. And you'll see that we have 112 picos. And 112 picos. That's good news. Let's go over to the third section, which is the RF. Sorry, my battery died. So what you're witnessing here is that even when I did this second test, things are working now, right? How could that be? Well, I'll show you what I found yesterday and we'll see if that's still the problem. So what I found yesterday is that I was measuring, I'm going to remove all these gator wires for the time being. So when I was doing a simple resistance measurement on this frame right here, like so, I was getting some very unusual readings. So let's see what happens now. So I have my meter set to ohms. If I go to the first section and the screw, 0 ohms. Second screw, 0 ohms. Let's go over here, 0 ohms, 0 ohms. Let's go over here, 0 ohms and 0 ohms. Well, look at that. Yesterday when I did it, I had 2.5 meg here and 23 meg here. So just by me working those screws in and out of these plates, I've probably knocked loose some rust or something that formed in there when I was cleaning it. But, you know, I'm not going to put it back together and then hope it works again. I'm going to do something a little different on this thing. So this is a 4-inch number 8 32 screw that goes through. What I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this with a 4-inch number 6 32 screw. And I'm going to put a piece of heat shrink tube on the screw as it goes into here, just to make sure that nothing can ever touch. And then I believe I'll have a working tuning cap. Okay? So that's going to be the plan. So at the moment, we think everything is working. But I guarantee you, if I mess with these screws, which I will do just for kicks, and you know, if you're not interested in this, just tune down or fast forward. But I'm going to tune these screws in just a little bit more to make sure they're gripping right and everything's good. And I'll tell you, I was getting a lot more resistance on these screws yesterday, so I have a feeling I knocked something loose in here, which is helping me. But I've just moved the screws, and now we're going to reassemble our little mess here. And let's see if we get the same readings. So we're going to install our tuning capacitor again, our mica, like so. Okay, that's all there. Here's our ground, right there. And here's the wire that goes to the section of the tuning cap. Currently reading 20 picos. Let's see what happens if I go here. I have the screw connected to ground. Still getting a good reading. Still getting a good reading. I could also do this with my meter, which I'll do after this. Let's move to the second section, just to make sure. So you understand what I'm doing. I'm basically recreating the tuning cap on the bench. That's good. Let's go to the last section. Okay, all good. One last test. Again, remember I did move those screws again. So we're going to use our meter and just test it one more time. And then I'm going to kind of be happy and say that I think I may have solved the problem. here, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Remember, there's 2 screws going through here. So theoretically, this tuning cap should now work. What do you think? A little coffee there. So I'm going to attribute this problem to these screws. So what I'm going to do, I think, is off camera, take these screws out again, and I'm going to just gently take a Q-tip and clean out inside there and see what kind of crap's in there. I guarantee you what happened is when I let this thing soak in the water to clean, some water got in there, and it probably rusted and created some type of connection that I didn't want. And I have a feeling by me working these screws in and out, this is the second time I've done this, taking them in and out and in and out, I've probably cleaned out what was in there. So let me go off camera and I'll be right back. Okay, so we have our sections now, and we've got a pipe cleaner with a little bit of rubbing alcohol on it. We're going to go through and see what comes out. See if there's any dirt in there. I guarantee there is. It's got to be something. I see a little bit of residue on there. Looks like it's rust. Let's see on this side. Not so bad. Let's check this one. That one picked up a lot of dirt right there. Now there could be tarnish too, because it looks like that insert part is brass. So there could be a lot of tarnish. For those of you that think this is like crazy to take this apart, it's really not that hard. You just have to reverse engineer it. It's a tight little design, I'll tell you that. Whoever invented this thing, remember this is 1931, right? So whoever invented this thing, my hat's off to him, because it's an engineering marvel to try to figure it out. It's really not that hard, honestly. So we've got these things cleaned out now. So that's done. So what's the plan going forward? So I told you that I was going to use a smaller screw. So I've got some number 6 screws here. And the plan is going to be to put this is a short one, I need a 4-inch one. But my plan is going to be to insert this shrink wrap tube in that hole, like so. And make sure I have a long enough piece. And then when I put the screw in, there's no chance of it shorting out to anything. Just like that. And that will be a nice little grip, and I'll just use number 6 instead of number 8. So that's going to be the plan. Alright? So we've got our heat shrink tube in here. I'll have to take that out because I need a longer piece. But I'll do that later. But you get the idea, right? So that's what was causing my issue, was the these sections that were rusty. All right, so there's a lesson learned there for everybody. Hopefully, if you ever have a situation like that where you can't get a radio working and you don't know what the hell's going on, you're pulling your hair out like me, think about the tuning capacitor, because it can do wild things to you, like it did for me. Most of you know that I've been working on this thing for months. So this proves that, it's not always the obvious. Sometimes it's the things that you take for granted and you don't even realize could be an issue. So that's the moral of the story. So I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. But I think I'm going to be in a good spot. Once I reassemble this thing, I'll come back in the next episode and show you how it works before I reinstall it in the radio. All right? All right, everybody. So have a great night, and we will see you guys later. Take care.